All praises, all praises, all praises to the heavenly, holy, almighty creator of infinity, eternity, the universe, and all there is. This is Revelations.Unveiled. Detroit. Hello, family. We are back together again in comfort, love, safety, and joy, where we are convening and converging so that we can continue our secular intellectual expansion and our spiritual upgrade as we continue on our journey as the newly recognized and acknowledging Israelites of the 12 tribes of the house of Jacob. We're scattered abroad to the four corners of the earth, and by divine grace and righteousness, the Holy Power Creator has deemed us worthy with the Holy Spirit to understand His Word and His law and wisdom. All praises. And so, family, to the brothers and sisters of the world, we are now ready for another examination of some of the current events and developments within this carnal existence that we endure. And so, this article came to my attention, and it immediately sparked a question in terms of the growth of the awakening, the brothers out in the highways and the byways, spreading the word and the truth of the Holy Power Creator about our true identity, our true heritage, and our actual history. All praises. And so, as that tsunami of the Spirit continues to grow, as our brothers and sisters of the world continue to put away the darkness and ignorance of the carnal curriculum of this captivity we endure on this continent of confusion, we now are seeing some of the repercussions of that spirit of the brothers and sisters of the world coming out of the world and coming into the truth, the way, and the life. And so, family, tonight we will be reading and understanding some of the undertones and some of the intents of the players and the characters of this particular script or act of review for the evening. And so, before we begin, we give all due honor to the Revelations.Unveiled. Detroit channel standards in the books of Malachi, chapter 3, verse 6, the book of Hebrews, chapter 13, verse 8. And as we continue to learn and discern the holy history as well as the historical secular presentations of world history, we give the sharpening of the tool by Holy Brother Prophet Isaiah in his scroll of the 28th chapter, verses 9 through 11. And so, family, tonight we will be getting the fruits and the benefits of the soul as we review the article, Major Jewish Denomination Votes to Support Reparations for Slavery. And so, family, the Jewish, the Ashkenazi, the Khazarian people, demographic, ethnicity, those who refer to themselves as Jews, those people who of the world designation are Israelis who lived in the created state of the land of Israel, as so ordered by the Balfour Declaration of 1948 by the British Empire with the assistance of the American military forces. These people have crafted a homeland for themselves as they were coming out of the scourges of war, of World War II, from the various land masses, areas, territories, and boundaries of Central and Eastern Europe. And so we shall look into the heart of these people as we examine the title of their vote of support for reparations for slavery. We begin. The Union for Reform Judaism is calling for a study on reparations to redress the continuing effects of slavery and systemic racism against Black Americans. Article by Carol Kuruvilla of HuffingtonPost.com. And once again, family, we are starting off with a call for a study. Well, there's already been a study by the UN Panel for Race Relations that was developed between 2010 and 2016 with express recommendations given for the areas of study and the impact of the life and lifestyles and livelihoods of Black Americans since being brought here in 1619. The Reform Movement, America's largest Jewish denomination, has passed a resolution supporting the need to make reparations for slavery. The resolution, approved by delegates to the Union for Reform Judaism's biennial meeting on Friday, supports the creation of a federal commission to develop proposals to address the continuing effects of slavery and systemic discrimination against Black Americans. The resolution recounts the history of slavery in the U.S. and points out how racial inequity still affects Black Americans today in areas such as housing, education, employment, health, and justice. Such injustices will endure unless proactive steps are taken to acknowledge and eliminate them, the resolution states. The resolution does not define what forms reparations should take, but notes several possibilities, including expressions of remorse, education, monetary compensation, and more. It points to Jewish texts on the importance of restitution for wrongs committed. And so, family, once again, it's always a fluid and relative application as to the recompense for the American Holocaust that existed for centuries here, for the building of the foundation and the platform for American society. The rabbis understood that the victim of a crime was made whole by financial repayment for damages done, the resolution states. Maimonides, and forgive the pronunciation, family, a renowned Jewish scholar, went one step further, linking the payment of damages to the concept of teshuvah, noting that repentance must accompany the financial commitment. The URJ claims it is the first major Jewish institution to endorse the idea of reparations for the enslavement of Black Americans. Yolanda Savage Narva, vice chair of Reform Judaism's Commission on Social Action, called the resolution a huge first step because it brings awareness to the issue of reparations. As a Black Jewish woman, she states, the resolution is important to her because it shows that her denomination is acknowledging that there is this systemic oppression that has been passed down from generation to generation. Looking at something like reparations for Black people in this country is something that is very important when we're thinking of healing the racial wounds that have been inflicted in this country for at least 400 years, Savage Narva told Huffington Post. The URJ's resolution was passed as churches, universities, and other organizations grapple with how to atone for profiting from slave labor. Earlier this year, an Episcopal church seminary in Virginia that benefited from the work of enslaved African Americans created a $1.7 million reparations fund in an effort to make amends for Georgetown's University's 1838 sale of 272 slaves. The school's student government passed a non-binding bill this year that supported adding a small fee, to all undergraduates' tuition that would go toward a reparations fund. All right, family, so we see these so-called universities, churches, and other organizations are realizing the depth and the true history of the captives of this nation. So we have to reform our language in saying they were slaves. They were captives brought here who were enslaved. And through the creation and foundation of the institutions of the American Empire, the work, the bodies, the blood, the tears, the pain, the screams of these people was the fertilizer for the soul of the growth of a new nation. And so as this history continues to emerge, as it is read, as it is spoken, as it is understood and acknowledged, the soul of a being must bear the question, is it right that all that was created here in the last 250 years, does it represent a nation of righteousness, of godliness, of true ability for seeking happiness and liberty and having true justice for all? That is the question. Bills for the establishment of a federal Commission on Reparations for Slavery were introduced in the U.S. House of Representatives and Senate this year, but have not moved forward. The URJ's resolution pointed to recent examples of governments offering reparations to wronged communities. The German government has paid more than $70 billion in reparations to more than 800,000 German Holocaust survivors. In 1980, Congress created a commission to investigate the legacy of Japanese Americans' incarceration during World War II. The commission's final report eventually led to a formal apology from the U.S. government and $20,000 in compensation for each survivor. And these were for the acts committed during World War II between the dates of September 1, 1939 and September 2, 1945. 6 years, family. But it is a continuing barrier, and they wrestle with the soul when they have to atone for the brutalization, the disenfranchisement, and torture, and bondage, and murder, and rape, and every other satanic mechanism for a people who endured and survived from 1619 to 1865 and beyond. The URJ's resolution also urged its nearly 850 congregations in the U.S. and Canada to become active in racial justice efforts. Some in the Reformed Jewish community may not feel a personal responsibility to address the issues of reparations for slavery, said Rabbi Jonah Pesner, the director of the URJ's social justice arm, the Religious Action Center. In an op-ed for the Chicago Tribune, he stated last Tuesday. Now, it's very interesting how the opponents would argue, and they have no problems with American being associated with various packages of reparations and recompense to the Jewish survivors of the Holocaust, but that occurred in Germany. We're talking about the Great American Holocaust that occurred here over the course of centuries, government sanctioned and instituted. A small number of early Jewish Americans traded and owned slaves, but most white American Jews immigrated to the U.S. after slavery was abolished. American Jews, including Reform Jews, were also key allies for black activists during the civil rights movement. But family, let's make sure we're clear on history. Many of the ships were financed by Jewish merchants and money changers. Many of the ports and plantations were owned by Jewish citizens. So they are also deeply vetted and embedded in the Holocaust of the American captives. And they are willing recipients to American monies, which are American tax dollars, which the children and descendants of those captives pay through their taxes. Still, Pilsner wrote, many members of the Reform community have white Jewish grandparents who arrived in the U.S. in the early 1900s who were able to overcome anti-Semitism, poverty, and displacement. Without diminishing their sacrifices or the challenges they faced, we can now understand that they and many of us also benefited from and continue to benefit from the same white privilege that allows for the continued discrimination against black Americans, Pesner wrote. From how we gained entry into this country to the places we were allowed to live and work, to access to education and financial capital, white Jews have reaped the rewards of racism. That's why Reform Jews have a moral duty to confront racism, Pesner said. We cannot expect to be a spiritually renewed community or country without the airing of truth and a coming to terms with our past sins and silence, he wrote. Eric Green, a Los Angeles board member of the Jewish Multiracial Network, praised the URJ's resolution on reparations, saying that Jewish institutions have a moral imperative to combat bias and promote racial equality. This is the obligation of all Americans, regardless of what the U.S. government may or may not do about reparations, Green told Huffington Post. Our traditions teaches that none of us are free to desist from that struggle. Tony J. Westbrook Jr., assistant director of the Jewish group Hillel at Washington University in St. Louis, called the URJ's resolution a major step. As a black American Israeli Orthodox Jew, Westbrook said he would love to see other Jewish denominations, especially more traditional movements, voice their support for reparations or for any other social justice issues. There are many Jews of color in the various movements, and often we have to hang up parts of our identities at the door, Westbrook told the Huffington Post in an email. More statements in support of reparations and other social inequality work will help many feel to seen in our respective communities. Or he said would help many feel they are being seen in their respective communities. So, family, even our brothers and sisters of the world who are studying within the religion of Judaism are still facing various barriers and caste systems and racial codes and color codes, even as they try to learn of the Jewish culture and way of life. And so, family, we do know as the 12 tribes of the house of Jacob that we are not Jewish. We know Jewish represents the European converts to the religion. We are the children of the covenant. We are the children of the book. We are the children of light. And we recognize the captivity and the reason for the captivity. And so in reading this article, we're just getting a little peep as to some of the movements of the so-called Jewish Ashkenaz people. So we will keep an eye out and see if this is a developing and emerging movement on their part. We will see if they will wield their political influence on the congressmen and senators. Do they have the effective pull of the ear to the presidential candidates and the sitting president? Is this a earnest and genuine push, statement, movement in support for due compensation for the captives of this nation, for the descendants of those who made it through the torture of biblical proportion? So, family, we will continue to view, we will continue to look, we will continue to examine. This is a very interesting move on the part of the Jewish people. And as we continue to spread the word, and as we continue to pluck our brothers and sisters out of the world, we shall continue on that path of righteousness given to us by our holy anointed Messiah and King. And so, family, Jewish support for reparations for Black Americans. There's an article in the Huffington Post, and so we shall continue, we shall persevere, we shall endure. And until we are together again, I love you. I love you. I love you. This is Revelations.Unveiled. Detroit.